What's up, guys? Josh from Strength Side. This is a follow along hip mobility routine that's pretty intense. This is perfect for athletes, anyone that needs to take their hips and their legs into deep ranges of motion and to move around in those deep ranges of motion. And this is definitely intense and not so much for beginners. We're going to be using this 90-90 position for just about everything in this routine. So one leg is in front, one leg is in back. And in the beginning here, we're starting with that front leg at about 90 degrees. And we're just leaning that chest forward towards the ankle. And this is going to be opening up the external rotation on the front leg here. Okay, so I'm trying not to hunch my back too much here. I'm trying to keep my chest up. You may get a little rounding in the spine, and that's okay. This position kind of lends itself to that. But I want you to think chest to ankle or heel rather than that chest moving over the knee. That is going to start getting into the rotation of the hip more. I'm holding for about 10 seconds, and we're doing each side 3 times here. And we're just starting to warm up some of this active mobility. And essentially, that's why this routine is great for athletes, is because we're taking the hips into different stretched ranges of motions here, but then we're also asking them to stabilize and to be strong in these positions. And it doesn't matter what your sport is, you're going to be put in different hip positions, different leg positions, different body positions that you usually aren't in everyday life, and you're going to need to be strong or quick in those positions. And essentially that's what we're training here. And now we move on to the 90-90 switch, where we rotate the legs through side to side. So try to keep your heels or your feet in the same place and not move them too much. And that means we'll get all the rotation from the hips. Now I'm putting my hands out in front of me right now to counterbalance myself. I also find I get a lot more hip rotation if I really squeeze my core while I do this. So I'm not gonna lie, I kind of lost track of how many I was doing here. I think I do around 14, but if you're doing this at home, anywhere between 10 to 16 will be just perfect. And these can be really challenging in the beginning because your hips probably just aren't used to working in this position. But as you do it more and more, you gain more control of the hips in these positions. So now we're back to what we did first with that 90-90 pigeon, but I'm going to straighten my back leg here. Now I'm staying up on my front leg, right? So I'm keeping that front leg at about 90 degrees. I'm leaning forward and I'm supporting myself. Now, this isn't so much about flexibility here, right? Some of you guys are probably more flexible than me and can get into this position a little bit deeper, but we're really trying to support ourselves on that front leg and make that front leg be doing a lot of work here and supporting this position. So yeah, this can be a little demanding. You could see I'm getting a little fatigued here. This is not the easiest thing in the world. Now on that first set, I kept my knee down on my back leg. On this set, I'm gonna make it even more challenging by picking that knee up off the ground. That means more of my weight is moving forward onto that front leg, right? That hip is really working in this position. It's super active. Let's do another one on this side. So I lean forward, I get that chest going over towards the ankle, and I'm picking that back knee up. All my weight is forward. That hip is doing all the work here. It's gonna feel hard. It's also gonna feel pretty nice as you start to get more used to this. So we're gonna do one more round. All right, so take yourself a quick break here. I find it nice to sit in this straddle pancake position to give the hips a little bit of a rest from being in that deep rotation this whole time, right? So now, pretty quick rest. We're gonna hop back into 90-90. So this time we're going back to these 90-90 rotations. Notice how I'm keeping my arms this time. I'm not reaching them out in front of me. That takes a little bit of my counterbalance away from me and forces the hips to have to work a little bit more through this range here, right? And now I'm really trying to keep my heels down into the ground, not let them move, getting all the rotation from the hips and also the torso, but a lot of that rotation is coming from the hips for sure. Now, once again, you could do anywhere from 10 to 16 rotations here. I started out slow and controlled, and then I like to end with the last few reps of going a bit faster and kind of speeding my way through the rotation. Okay, so another little break in the pancake. And a common question that I get asked is, hey, can this be good for runners? Hey, can this be good for basketball players? Guys, what's good for one sport is usually good for all. There's not really like secret techniques for runners versus martial artists. You know, healthy and strong hips are healthy and strong hips, right? So this can be good for anyone. And this right here is the Shin Box Lunge. This is kind of the bread and butter of this workout right here. Everything we're doing is kind of leading up to this and preparing us for this. So you just saw me do one rep here. Essentially, we're using our 90-90 hip rotation to go from side to side. Then we're going to bridge our hips up. And you could use some assistance from the ground as you see me do here. Then you bring that back leg around and you come into a lunge position, and then you swipe it back around and lower yourself down to the ground controlled. So we bring those hips up, we come to that lunge position, deep lunge. You should feel a stretch in your hip flexor, and then we come back down and around. It's going to be challenging to get the coordination in the beginning, but once you do, I want you to focus on getting this as smooth as possible. So I bring the hips up, I take a step forward, then I slide my foot back into that position behind me, and I rotate around. To do this really efficiently takes a lot of strength out of your glute muscles. So we talk a lot in the fitness industry about strengthening the glutes, using the glutes. This right here is real glute activation, right? To be able to rotate and to do this smoothly, especially without using your hands, you need the glutes and the rotator muscles to be really strong here to propel you forward, right? But there is no shame in using your hands in the beginning. For most people, you're going to need to have a little bit of assistance from the hands just to get kind of the coordination of this movement, and you'd be surprised at how fast you can start moving the hands away. Okay guys, the hips should be feeling nice and warmed up by now, and we have these last two exercises to go. This is a really challenging one, but one of my favorites, and that's going from the 90-90 into the squat. So I'm using my hand to lower myself and to assist in propelling myself up into the squat. Now, if you can do this without your hand, you are a real boss. I will shake your hand. I'm actually working towards being able to do this without the hand. It's very, very challenging. Even with the hand, this takes a lot of hip and core control, but it also feels really, really nice. And to be able to go from a ground seated position up into a squat takes a lot of strength and stability from the hips and is going to give you a lot of athleticism. And the way to improve at this is just to take it slower, really control that way down like I'm doing right here, trying to go nice, slow, and controlled. Okay, go ahead and hop into that pancake. Rest the hips for a second here. And the last exercise we're going to do is we're actually just going to go back to the Shin Box Lunge that we did before. And on this one, when I come back to my 90-90 here, I'm going to take 5 seconds to lower down, right? optimally you want to do that lower with no hands, and you're trying to make the hips really take all of the weight here and just sit down and kind of kiss that ground as you get to the bottom, right? So this becomes a lot more challenging when we're doing these really slow lowers. And this is really, really going to be great for your hip internal rotation, which a lot of the times gets lost in people from us sitting so much. But the more that we can have control of that hip internal rotation, the deeper our squat is, the deeper we can kind of get into these positions that a lot of sports require us to be in. So guys, as you can see, this only takes about 10 minutes here. It's a great warm-up if you're getting ready to go do your sport or activity or do any type of fitness that requires a lot of, different types of movement. Now, like I mentioned, this is very active. This is active mobility and strength. If your goal is to get flexible, this definitely will help you getting flexible as well, but you should definitely be combining this with different stretching techniques to further that passive flexibility. So if you are an athlete, comment below, let me know which sport or activity you're playing or doing. And let me know how you're using this workout to benefit you in that sport. I would love to know, or if it is benefiting you. So at the end, I always like to sit in the deep squat here. It's amazing how good the squat will feel after you do this. And a good thing to do is just sit in the squat before you do it so you can kind of measure and see what kind of change there was.
Yeah, just come close.
Okay.
Okay guys, by now your hips should be feeling really good. They should be a little bit fatigued. Sitting in the squat should feel super, super deep. Hope you enjoyed this. This is intense. Do it before you're gonna do a training session or before you're gonna play your sport, because this is for the real athletes. All right guys, make sure to like the video. Subscribe to Strength Side as always.